What is up, everybody? I'm here with Dougley Designs to show you how I made a wooden cup like this one using just scrap curly maple cutoffs that I got from the local woodcraft store. I'll take you through step by step to show you how I did it, and you could learn from my mistakes, which I make a ton of mistakes. But if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you like the video, you learn something new. It doesn't matter whether you win or lose as long as you learn something. So if you have any suggestions, also, I need suggestions. I love suggestions. I could use a ton of them. So please leave anything that you want to say in the comment section below. Let's get into the steps. So the first step of any project is getting your wood to the dimensions that you need them. So I'm going to be at my table saw dimensioning these pieces of wood. So far I have this black walnut that's set to 1.5 inches wide. I've got my table saw set to the same width, and I'm going to be cutting all the curly maple pieces to that same width so that whenever I cut them into segments, they will match, they will glue together evenly, and I'm going to go ahead and start from there. Alright, so after running them through the table saw, I have enough pieces to make a segmented cup here. They are the same height and the same width. The length, of course, is different, but I'll be cutting them into segmented pieces, so that won't matter. Let's move on to the next step. Alright, so after cutting all of the wood that I needed to the dimensions that I needed them, I'm going to be making them into segments. I'm going to be using this miter saw here. I have set it to 30 degrees on the angle, and I've created a backstop so that whenever I put a piece in and I flip it, it will always be the same size whenever I cut them. Let's get started on the cutting. Okay, so I've cut all the dimensional lumber into little segments. These segments I'm going to glue together into these half rounds. These half rounds I'm going to eventually glue together into these full rounds. This is just a broken example that absolutely got shattered on my planer. I hate the planer. And the first step you're going to want is to grab 3 of your pieces, alternating pattern, black walnut, maple, black walnut. Apply your glue to the side that you want to apply to the other one. Smother it across so that it covers every square inch of it. And then apply pressure to that joint for about 30 seconds. I'm going to do about 15-20 seconds just for the example. And then you're going to want to move on to the next one and do the same thing. Smother your glue across, then apply pressure, and you're going to repeat this process over and over and over and over and over again until you're out of pieces that are segmented. You're going to want to move these around instead of just leaving them if you're going to be putting them on a table like this, because if you leave the glue to dry, the bond between wood, glue, and wood is stronger than the original bond of wood. That's why it's such a popular product. Apply pressure, and then you're going to want to let it sit for about 24 hours once you're sure that it's not going to stick to the table. Alright, so all these pieces are now glued together. The trick here is to wait. I'm supposed to wait 24 hours for the glue to cure before applying any stress, but I'm going to wait until the morning and then I'm going to move on to the next step. Okay, now that the glue has dried, you've got these edges sanded, you're going to want to apply glue on the half rounds. Spread the glue evenly. And then hold the pieces together like you did last time, applying pressure. And after holding it together for 20-30 seconds, you're going to want to apply some rubber bands so that they can constantly apply pressure throughout the glue drying process. And you're going to want to repeat that step over and over again until you don't have any more pieces to glue together. Alright, so we've let the glue dry for a few hours. They've gotten to the point where I feel comfortable, messing with them. Have a few of them that are not completely perfect. This is a little higher on one side than the other, so I'm going to put it on the belt sander, try and get these even, so whenever I glue them together on this next step, they will not leave large gaps. So the next step is, of course, wear your mask, use your dust collector, and not cover everything in your garage in dust. Alright, the tops and bottoms are flat enough for me to glue together now. It is time for our favorite part of the entire video, gluing it all together. Okay, so the glue has dried. I've removed all these rubber bands, and I've already glued these two pieces together again, attached them with clamps, and now I just have to wait 24 hours, a few hours, but I'm going to be putting it on the lathe after this, also the drill press, so probably am going to wait quite a bit of time. We'll come back to this. Okay, the glue has dried. Ready to take the clamps off. The next step is put it onto this drill press. Use this 2 1/8 inch Forstner bit to drill a hole in the center on the bottom so that I can grip it with the chuck. I don't think I can grip it from the bottom, but if I can, I will, and try and center it on both sides. Alright, I've sanded down the sides so that it'll fit in my vise. That's an unnecessary step. I'm just going to have to cut smaller segments in the future if I want to use the vise. This vise anyway. I could get a larger one. I have a larger one, just this is the easier one to fix to the table. Alright, we have our blank. The guide hole that I drilled is set, and it will fit onto the chuck like so. Tighten the chuck around it by widening the teeth. There we go. Set the tool rest here, give it a little light spin so that I can tell that the tool rest is not going to be making contact. Lock down the toolbar, and now we switch it to fast mode. Alright, so I finished rounding it down. It's generally round. This is what it looks like. I'm going to move the tool rest from here to over here so I can hollow out the center. And after I finish hollowing out the center, I'll start sanding and then moving on to the next step. Okay, so now it is rounded out on the outside, hollowed out on the inside. I feel like that's enough space for a typical person's drink. The step after this is to sand it. I have my dust collector here so it won't choke. I'm going to start off with a rough grit. This is 60, and I'm going to work my way up to 100 and something right here. And eventually I'm going to get to 400. Can you read it? And after that, I'm going to use some steel wool. It's 000. This is going to be a polishing part to the video. And after that, I'm going to start on the next step. Alright, so I've taken this down to, I guess, 000 with steel wool. The porous nature of the black walnut keeps on catching the steel wool, and it's not exactly going perfectly. There's a few parts on the maple that is experiencing tear out. It would take hours and hours of sanding to get down to it because of how deep these tear outs are. One way you can avoid this is using sharper chisels. I've got some really sharp carbide, but still it's experiencing a lot of tear out on mainly the maple. I still have to sand out on the inside some more, but we're basically at the step where I can start applying epoxy on the outside. Okay, so I have my cup. It is sanded down. I'm kind of satisfied with it, sort of. What I need to do is find a way to fill this hole right here. In previous tests, I've just tried to fill it with epoxy. That takes too long. I don't like the results too much. So I'm going to take this piece of ebony wood and mill it down to 2 1/8 inch so that it will fit the hole, fill it in. I'm just going to take about 1 inch of it or so and mill that down, slice it off with the miter saw, use wood glue to fit it into the hole, and probably going to put epoxy on the outside of the cup first. Let's see how it goes. Alright, so the next step after all of that other stuff is to coat the outside with epoxy. I'm going to be using some Alumilite amazing clear cast. It is FDA compliant, food safe. It's a two-part mixture, 1-to-1. I'm going to put a few ounces into one cup, a few ounces into the next cup, and then try my best to coat the outsides of these cups to create a airtight and watertight seal on the cups. I'll have to mix this for a good 5 minutes after combining them. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through the video, and once I'm getting to the point where I'm mixing it and pouring it onto the cup, I'll come back. Alright, the epoxy has dried. It has a decent layer on the outside that should provide a waterproof finish. I'm going to buff it down and then probably apply a second coat to seal in the rest, and then buff that down again. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so I have my cup here. I've applied epoxy to the outside. It should be ready to be waterproof on the outside. Now to work on the inside, I've plugged it at the bottom with a piece of ebony wood and applied wood glue so that it seals. And I have mixed my epoxy. It is two-part, amazing clear cast. It is food safe. And the trick here is to pour it in and then start swirling it around so that it evenly coats the inside. See if you can't see the liquid in there. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it. And here it is. There's a little bit of drippiness from the epoxy on there, but the inside is sealed, the outside is sealed. It is ready to be used. That is all the steps that I went through. That is how I made it. It took way more time than I expected because I had a lot of learning curve, but I tried to include most of the learning curve in the video so that if you wanted to do it too, you could avoid a lot of those same mistakes. If you have any questions, comments, comment section is still below. Thank you for checking out the video. Thank you for checking out the channel. Appreciate your time. Thanks.